All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION. These are the Arab and the Muslim leaders have gathered in Saudi Arabia for what has been dubbed as an extraordinary joint Islamic Arab summit in an attempt to exert their influence to try and press the United States and the State of Israel to bring an immediate end to the bombings on the Gaza Strip. The leaders, including the Iranian president, have issued a strong statement. They've condemned Israel's relentless bombardment of the Gaza enclave. The Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has called on the Arab and the Islamic world leaders to designate the Israeli military as a terrorist organization. In his first visit to Riyadh since Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to restore their ties in the month of March, Ibrahim Raisi urged the Muslim nations that have ties with Israel to sever them and has called for greater support for the Palestinian people. The Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has also called on for support from the Islamic nations, saying that Gaza is not an arena for words. The time has now come for action, and the action to be to immediately to cease fire on the innocent, hapless Palestinian civilians who are getting killed in their thousands.
این میدان دیگه میدان سخن تنها نیست که فقط سخن و اعلام موضع بشه. باید میدان عمل باشه و اقدام.
And echoing what the Iranian president has stated, the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad also called for the countries to stop the normalization talks with the State of Israel.
هي أن الكيان ازداد إيقاف أي مسار سياسي مع الكيان الصهيوني بكل ما يشمله المسار السياسي من عناوين اقتصادية أو غيرها، لتكون عودته مشروطة بالتزام الكيان بالوقف الفوري المديد لا المؤقت للإجرام بحق كل الفلسطينيين في كل فلسطين، مع السماح بإدخال المساعدات الفورية إلى غزة. أما الحديث عن الدولتين وإطلاق عملية السلام وغيرها من التفاصيل والحقوق.
The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has denounced attacks on the Gaza Strip. He's also reiterated his stance during the Riyadh summit, calling for an immediate end to the violence in the Gaza Strip.
الرحمن الرحيم، أصحاب الفخامة كامل، ومن هذا المنطلق يسرنا أن نعلن عن إطلاق مبادرة خادم الحرمين الشريفين، وأن ندين ما يشهده قطاع غزة من اعتداء عسكري واستهداف المدنيين واستمرار انتهاكات سلطة الاحتلال الإسرائيلية للقانون الدولي الإنساني، لنؤكد ضرورة وقف هذه الحرب والتهجير القسري وتهيئة الظروف لعودة الاستقرار وتحقيق السلام في أفريقيا، وذلك عبر تدشين مشروعات وبرامج مائية في دول القارة بقيمة تتجاوز $1 مليار على مدى 10 سنوات.
The joint meeting has been convened in response to the exceptional circumstances taking place in the Gaza Strip. Earlier, two separate meetings were in fact scheduled over the weekend, one of the Arab League and one of the OIC members, but now it has been combined. The Arab nations are divided about normalizing their ties with Israel, and they've been condemning the humanitarian crisis that is happening at this moment due to the relentless campaign of bombings that Israel has resorted on the Gaza Strip. According to reports, the Arab foreign ministers who held an emergency meeting on Thursday were divided, as some countries led by Algeria were calling their other Arab nation partners to cut off all diplomatic ties with the State of Israel.
المملكة من قدمت هذه المبادرة وسعت أيضا المملكة العربية.
In the Arab world, we're being joined by Professor Asif Ramiz Dodi. Now, Professor Dodi is a foreign policy and a Middle East expert. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor, we've been looking at what has been happening in the Gaza Strip for the last month, and the Arab leaders have been calling for an immediate ceasefire. And there was this extraordinary summit that's been held where the leaders of the Arab world and the Muslim nations have come together and they're calling for a ceasefire. But have the Arab nations done enough?
Well, Saleh, thank you for having me on your show. What is happening there is quite unfortunate. the world doesn't need a war. We have seen what's been happening there in Russia and Ukraine. So this is the biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns of the world, and especially for those countries who are going to be badly affected because of this. And in this extraordinary meeting, when we talk about, the Gaza Strip and what's happening there, I was just, trying to understand what you were saying in your introductory remarks. The first word was the hospitals. The hospitals are under attack, etc. I was going through one of very emotional remarks and messages yesterday, and I would like to quote it here. They say that in Palestine, their brothers and friends smell like hospitals, and the hospitals smell like graveyards, and graveyards smell like their brothers and relatives, and that is Palestine. When we have situation of this gravity, I mean, something where the world should realize the effect and impact if it is not controlled at the right time. That's the purpose, I think, those countries, especially in this region, they are trying to bring peace. They are trying to have some sort of
interject there. The question that I want you to, in fact, talk a bit about is, have these Arab nations used their leverage that they have to try and, to put some amount of pressure, if they can, on the United States and Israel for a ceasefire? Have the Arab nations made all the right noises, but have they acted on those noises that they are making?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with your question. When we see that it's not going to stop, we live in a world where we have rule-based system. We have international laws. Even wars have laws. So if it's not going to stop somewhere, they have to take the leverage. They have to show the unity. They have to come to the conclusion or some sort of, a decision where the ceasefire or the immediate kind of ceasefire is initiated, and that pressure, diplomatic pressure, or some sort of whatever pressure that one can create, it's needed. And this is one of those tactics, because we know one of the ministers in Israel mentioned about the nuclear attacks. I mean, see where the world is going. So if they do not follow the international laws, if we do not care about the innocent lives, around 4,000 children are being, killed. I mean, that's something. So this is something these Arab nations and those countries, especially, it's not only Arab nations.
Professor Dori, that brings me to my next question. The United States has been pushing for the normalization of ties of these Arab nations with the State of Israel under the Abraham Accords. But because of this war, are we to now say that the Abraham Accords and the normalization of ties between the Arab nations and Israel has now been put into cold storage?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And, these Arab nations, especially some of those progressive nations, they have vision, and they just tried to have some diversified, kind of vibrant kind of society. And considering that, they started having some sort of diplomatic ties and, some sort of connections and positive approach to bring peace and prosperity in the region. And now if we see these kinds of developments, I think when you talk about Abraham Accord, when you talk about having the diplomatic ties, etc., it's going to be in the cold storage, as you said.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Professor, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.